Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a new series on this channel. I love battleships, right? They are my favourite class of ship in this game. Well, type of ship, they're not really a class, are they? Like, I do fine in cruisers, I do atrociously in destroyers, and let's not even mention aircraft carriers, but battleships, I just utterly love battleships. Sure, there are a few bad apples. Mikasa, for example. There's a few bad apples, but even the bad ones, I can do pretty well in them. And so I've decided I'm going to make myself this little series where since I consider myself a sort of battleship connoisseur, if you can be a battleship connoisseur, I'm going to go through all my favourite battleships in the game. Well, here's how it's gonna work anyway. So what I'm going to do is basically take all the battleships in a tier and rank them. And that will start with the tier 3 battleships in this video. The next video will be the tier 4 battleships, then the tier 5s, then the tier 6s, tier 7s, which is currently the highest tier that I have all the battleships on, and eventually when I have all the tier 8, 9 and 10 battleships, those videos will come eventually. For now though, the highest tier I can realistically go up to is tier 8. No, 8, tier 7. Yes, tier 7. That's the highest tier, because I don't have the Richelieu, I don't even have the Gascoigne, don't have the Frenchies, and have very few of the tier 9 battleships, and only 2 of the tier 10 battleships. And starting with this video today are the tier 3 battleships. Disclaimers apply, because, this video is my opinion. You may think that my bottom tier ship is your best ship. You may think my best ship is your worst ship. That's fine. That's your opinion. This video is my opinion. But there is also a little bit of public opinion in there as well. So, disclaimers apply. So, the first ship on this list is widely believed to be, well, not only the worst battleship at tier 3, but also one of the worst battleships in the entire game. This is the Japanese tier 3 battleship Kawachi. Now, this ship holds a special place in my heart. I mean, come on, it's the first battleship many of us played. This was perhaps the first line that, well, probably 80% of all players ground out in the beta, the closed beta, the open beta, and then the Americans came along and kind of shifted the balance a little bit. Sadly, nostalgia is not enough to redeem the Kawachi. This ship, just how bad it is, shows. It really shows. Like, sometimes you'll get some pretty neat dispersion, like I think in this game I'm about to score a couple of pretty major citadels on a Caledon. Okay, maybe not, but yeah, you can citadel a Caledon in almost anything. The Kawachi really suffers with its guns, because they seem to be a bit too powerful. They are over Penn City, and also they're very inconsistent. Now, inconsistency is sort of a feature of all of the tier 3 battleships, but it is just really quite bad on the Kawachi. It is consistently inconsistent. The Kawachi has only really one redeeming feature, and that's, it's a first generation dreadnought, and it has wing turrets in order to house all of its guns. So if you happen to be aiming at a ship that's on your port side, and then a ship appears on your starboard side, then you can have 2 turrets ready to fire at the starboard ship in just a few seconds. Unfortunately, Kawachi does not have a lot of range. It's got the worst range of any of the tier 3 battleships, only 11 point... Is it 11.9? I think it is 11.9. No, it's 10.9. My bad. It used to be 9.9, but when they did the stealth firing update, like, way back around this time in 2017, I think it... Was it 2017? I can't remember. But when they did that, they buffed the range of the Kawachi. Now it has a whole kilometer more range, but so do all the other tier 3 battleships, which doesn't help. Her secondaries also don't help. They only have a range of 3 kilometers, and most of them fire armor-piercing shells, which, means they're totally useless. Oh, and she also doesn't have much of an anti-aircraft battery, but then again, anti-aircraft is more or less just an afterthought at tier 3. Now, look at the secondaries here. Look at the secondaries. You've got all these guns. There's a few puffs of smoke here and there, but I don't think I score a single secondary hit in this entire game. Now, bearing in mind that Wix is at more or less maximum range for the secondaries, but yeah, tier 3 secondaries just don't hit. Totally useless. Kawachi, I love you, but unfortunately, you are rubbish. You are the worst tier 3 battleship. So, what's the second worst tier 3 battleship? The American USS South Carolina. America's first dreadnought battleship. I do respect this ship. It is dangerous in the right hands, and I have had a few decent games in it. But then again, I am a very good battleship player, and I pretty much know how to play most of the battleships. So I tend to do quite well in almost all of them. There are a few bad apples, and this is close to being one of them. I actually dislike this ship more than the Kawachi, but I have to admit it is better than the Kawachi. However, it's only just better than the Kawachi. You see, it has one thing, the one thing that the Kawachi doesn't have. Range. It has the best range of any of the tier 3 battleships, 15.7 kilometers. South Carolina could shoot at the Kawachi from across the polar map. Yeah, it's not the biggest map in the game, but it is, still fairly large. Of course, the Kawachi might actually be a little stealthier than the South Carolina. The South Carolina may not be able to actually engage the Kawachi until the Kawachi gets within its own firing range, but at higher tier games, that being tier 4, this longer range of the South Carolina certainly helps it in engagements with tier 4 battleships, which have around 15 kilometers of range stock. One other more minor good point is that her secondaries are also marginally better than the Kawachi's. I mean, they're all smaller caliber, but they all fire high explosive shells, so, if something does happen to get within your secondary range, which is about 1% of the time, then you'll be able to inflict fire damage upon them, which is rather useful, I suppose. Jury's out on that. Oh yeah, and her anti-aircraft DPS is twice as much, so that's useful. That, though, is where all the good points end. You know, all the Tier 3 battleships are pretty slow, but South Carolina is the slowest. Stock, she manages just 16 knots. Yeah, that's bloody bad. I mean, upgraded, she does get 18 knots, which is still worse than any of the other battleships, Tier 3 battleships upgraded, so yeah. At full speed, every other Tier 3 battleship can outrun this one. That's why she has so much range, because she cannot keep up. Oh dear, Kawachi, not Kawachi, South Carolina. SoCal, you suck in that regard. Her guns are also predictably inconsistent, perhaps even more inconsistent than the Kawachi's. Then again, I do have two Citadels in this particular match, so maybe they're a little more consistent. But you know, they're the same guns that are on the Wyoming, and I like the Wyoming enough, and I've played the Arkansas quite a lot. But no matter what I tried, shooting at max range, I kept falling behind. I am familiar with the ballistics of these 12-inch guns, so maybe the South Carolina is firing a different kind of shell that has worse drag, but I'm firing no differently than I would with a Wyoming. And I'm just falling behind ever so slightly. Falling on the poop deck of the ship rather than... not the poop deck, the quarter deck. Whatever you call the rear deck of the ships these days. Never falling in the center or, you know, ahead. Always falling behind. Well, inconsistency. These battleships, they suffer from it a lot. So that's the second worst battleship. What's the next worst battleship? It's in the worst half of the list, but, you know, it's the first battleship that I actually think is okay. I think it's okay. So what is it? The French battleship Turin. I think that's how you pronounce it. Turin, or Turin, or... it sounds kind of like Turin, but Turin has always been in Italy, so... Turin. It's the only Tier 3 battleship that never actually existed. This is not France's first dreadnought. It's a fake ship, more or less. I don't know if this ship ever actually had plans made for it. It's basically just some pre-dreadnought type of battleship that's had a few extra turrets bolted on. Yeah, France's first dreadnought is actually their Tier 4, the Corbeil, so... you know, we'll get to that ship in the next video, but today we're looking at Turin, and I think this ship is pretty good. It's not fantastic, it's pretty good. It's a sort of middle-of-the-line ship. Sort of mid-range, does everything okay, but doesn't excel at it either. I'd call it a jack-of-all-trades, but it doesn't have torpedoes. Yeah, the guns, they do alright. These are 12-inch guns, but they do 200 more maximum damage than the same caliber guns on the Kawachi and the Bellerophon. 8,300 damage opposed to 8,100 damage. I suppose it counts if you're firing enough shells, but the difference is minor. Minor enough to really not make much of a difference. She's got the same general gun layout as Kawachi. You've got 2 wing turrets on each side, and you've got the 2 end turrets. So, 12 guns and 6 turrets. Can't fire all of them at the same time, of course. That would make you Tier 4. But she has better range than the Kawachi, 12.5 kilometers, which is better. It's not great, but it's pretty good for a tier 3 battleship. Pretty good for tier 3 in general, even. It goes at your pretty standard 21.5 knots. Rudder shift is acceptable. It's a battleship. You're not really expecting lightning quick rudder shift times. In fact, the only real bad things about this ship are two of the most pointless things, if you think about it. The secondary battery and the anti-aircraft battery. The secondary battery, at first glance, actually seems quite good. It's got 20 100mm guns. So why is it bad then? Well, these 20 100mm guns, they take 10 seconds to reload, each of course. They do 1,400 maximum damage, and since they fire high explosive, they're never gonna do that. And they also have a 4% fire chance. Meanwhile, the South Carolina's secondary battery guns are, well, they're only 76mm, but they fire every 6 seconds, do only 300 damage less, which means not going to be doing much damage at all, but whatever. And they have exactly the same fire chance, so there's that. Not to mention, she has exactly the same number of secondary guns, 20. Then there's the the anti-aircraft battery. It may as well not have an anti-aircraft battery. Like, even on the upgraded Turin, the anti-aircraft battery consists of, get this, 8 8mm machine guns. Literally, all it has are 8 single-mounted Hotchkiss Mark I machine guns. The same kind of machine gun that you get in Battlefield 1, called the M1909 Bene Merci. They fire out to a whopping range of 1 kilometer and do about 2 DPS. Maybe 4, but, well, because they have so little range, the DPS means nothing. Like, seriously, you look at the model of those machine guns in the port, and they are almost exactly the same as you'd get in Battlefield 1. They literally have this giant metal clip of 30 rounds that you stick into the side of the gun. It doesn't even have a belt or a drum. It's literally just this stick of 30 rounds. It's just the worst anti-aircraft weapon imaginable. And this thing has 8 of them. Yeah, oh well. The anti-aircraft doesn't really matter on the tier 3 battleships, but in the off chance that you do get attacked by aircraft in the Turin, you may as well just ignore it. It's just so bad. Oh god. But the rest of the ship is pretty good. Like, it seems to be fairly consistent, which for a French battleship is actually quite surprising. It seems to be one of the more consistent battleships of tier 3, and I like that. However, it is by no means the best of the tier 3 battleships. That doesn't go to this ship. It doesn't even go to the next ship either, which is the next one we're looking at, obviously. And so our number 3 on the list is the British HMS Bellerophon. You know, when it first came into the game, I really wanted HMS Dreadnought. It should have been, you know, Britain's first Dreadnought in the game as tier 3, rather than the Bellerophon, but apparently the Dreadnought is more of a tier 2.5 ship, even though it has the exact same 10-gun armament as the Bellerophon.